What's up, everybody? Welcome to the very first episode of the Pioneer Assembly, a place to gather for those called to go. My name is Bethany Barr Phillips, and I'm excited to be with you on this journey as we explore matters of faith, questions that we may have, and so much more. So sit back, grab a cup of coffee, or keep your eyes on the road, and welcome to the Pioneer Assembly. What's up, everybody? Welcome to the very first episode of the Pioneer Assembly. My name is Bethany Barr Phillips, and I will be hosting you throughout this journey. So many of you have reached out and asked if this might be something that I would be interested in. So we're jumping into what we're calling the Pioneer Assembly. So here on the inaugural episode, I want to introduce myself. I want to tell you where the name came from, what this is all about, and then just kind of explain what this will look like here in the coming months. So first, again, my name is Bethany Barr Phillips. Barr is actually my maiden name. Some people asked me and try to make it a connection to Middle Eastern roots. Not at all. We're just from South Mississippi. When I got married, I was doing ministry, and so Bethany Phillips, a lot of people weren't quite sure, and it just got really confusing. So I kept my maiden name just to try to help smooth that transition. And here we are 20 years later, still doing that. I've been married to Andy again for 20 plus years. He is absolutely a joy, and I'm just so thankful for him. He's one of the biggest cheerleaders behind this. And you'll hopefully get to hear from him as we go on the journey together. We have been married, have a wonderful daughter named Isaiah Jules. She will be 16 here in a couple of weeks, and you'll hear from her some too. Our journey has been crazy. We've been through cancer. We've been through job loss. We've been through tons of questions. Isaiah is a miracle child. And above all, we know this, that we may not always understand, but we always have the opportunity to trust. And that's kind of what being a pioneer is all about, right? So let me talk you through the idea and the name of the Pioneer Assembly. So Hebrews 12, Jesus is the ultimate pioneer, right? Some translations say he is the pioneer and perfecter of our faith. The one I memorized growing up was he's the author and perfecter of our faith. That's who he is. And a lot of times we try and make the idea of a pioneer be something that feels so far off and out of reach, but really sometimes being a pioneer is just going across the hallway. It's going across the street. It's doing things out of our comfort zone. We're living in a time where faith is being greatly tested. It's not the first time for Christians, and it will not be the last. Our role is not to shame or to slam our neighbor or even people that we see on social media, but honestly, it's just to love them and compel them to love Jesus in the same way and be like him through the gift of the cross and the power of the Holy Spirit. I really believe with all of my heart that we're living in a time where we've got to pioneer. Western Christianity has been under the assumption that everybody wants what we have. And while we desire for this to be true, we don't always demonstrate this among one another. And I think that's why we must pioneer. It's time to go a new way. It's time to go maybe a way that the first century Christians did, where they were willing to give it all, give their lives, to go out into the unknown, not knowing what the consequences will be, but knowing who's got us in the palm of his hand. My daughter Isaiah is a part of the horse world. She does Western riding, cutting, cow work, that kind of thing. We didn't know we were cow people. Now we are cow people. She competes regularly at a show in small town Tennessee, and there's a lot of downtime. One afternoon, I talked Andy and Isaiah into letting me go get a fancy cup of coffee and kind of look at the junk stores downtown. I call them junk stores. And I ran upon a copy of the Pilgrim's Progress that had been annotated by Warren Wiersbe. Warren Wiersbe is an incredible commentary and scholar that gives such great insight in plain language. I learned about him from my friend Jimmy Bowers when I was looking for commentaries once when I was studying to teach. And have loved it ever since, bought all of the commentaries. I recommend them to you if you're looking for a great, maybe not entry level, but like gateway commentary. Warren Wiersbe. I start opening up the Pilgrim's Progress and reading through it and understanding this idea, this journey that we're giving our lives to the Lord, and things may still come about to infiltrate what's happening to us and around us. But the reality is that God is always with us. He gives us an opportunity to open his word every day, to know that his word is a lamp unto our feet and a light unto our path. And so I want to encourage you that a pioneer is not just that distant word or that far out Western thing. It's really something that we have an opportunity to do today. When I think of assembly, I think of a gathering. I think of that scene in the Field of Dreams where Ray and Annie go to the parent assembly because they're trying to fight for their kids and their books and all those kinds of things. I know that's a loose interpretation, but I think of that idea when we assemble, because assembly creates expectation. It means when we come together, there's purpose. In the early days of the church, assemblies were ways of gathering for believers, places to hear the gospel, to build your faith, to pray, to worship, to really forge a foundation. I feel like assembly feels optional in the modern world because we have social media, we have immediate news outlets. Everything is in real time now. But going to a place means there's expectation and you're going to have to wait on something. I think that's why so many local churches want you to be in person or in the room. There's expectancy, again, when people gather. The Bible talks about not forsaking the gathering. So this is not just a new thought because of social media. It's been there from the very beginning. The writer of Hebrews tells us we don't forsake the gathering of believers. So that's really what the assembly is all about. Can I ask you this as you're listening? When you gather, when you turn on this podcast, could you come with expectation? I believe there's more for all of us, not just to learn about Jesus, but to experience in him. Jesus' pioneering presence on earth meant that things were changing. They couldn't be what they once were. God had a rescue plan, and it was through his son. Therefore, he had to make available a change of trajectory for those willing to respond. This podcast is for those people, the ones willing to assemble and pioneer. It's for those longing to belong and maybe those longing to believe. It won't be for the faint of heart or faith, but this podcast is for those willing to assemble and not just rise up, but go out. There's such a difference in trying to make a ruckus and to hit the road and to go and put our faith where it truly matters. The purpose of the Pioneer Assembly is to be a place to gather for those called to go. A pioneer doesn't stop at calling. We go. It doesn't mean, again, across the world all the time. It could just mean across the hallway or the street. This is a place and a podcast where we're not always going to be seeking to be right. We're going to seek the truth in God's word. We don't back down because we believe that God is who he says he is and that he will do what he promised he will do. I have been a part of all kinds of different ministries over half of my life in denominations and organizations, all kinds of shapes, colors, sizes, setups. And the Lord has always allowed me to be most often on the fringes of things, if I can be honest. That doesn't mean I'm always leading them. It doesn't mean I'm on the outside looking in. It does mean, though, that I've had this beautiful viewpoint of God's bigger picture to be able to look right and to look left and to see how we can pull these two things together. So I would love to say that I'm doing something that we've all been called to do. It's not innovative or revolutionary. It's just the hope that we would all gather and assemble to go. For those on the fringes, I'll talk to you about this more later. They've led me to know one thing for certain. I resolve to know Christ and him crucified. And I pray that's the same for you. This is why we pioneer. So I hope when you come back in this coming days, this is a place that you come with expectation and you know that you're welcome here. Let me explain the format of this really quick. We're going to have two different formats. We're going to have a long form format, which is traditional podcasts, like you know. And these traditional forms will just be topically or scripturally related. I would love to hear from you more about that, what you would like to hear about. The second form we're going to do is what we're going to call field notes. Field notes are very short episodes that will drop Monday through Friday. You'll have a very short episode that you can listen to while you're making coffee, headed to the car line, walking across your campus, whatever that looks like. So traditional long form and then field notes is what we're going to call our short form. They're going to come almost like in a package. We want the rhythm of these to work well for you. So let us know if that's a great spot for you or if you have ideas on what you think might work best. We want to be able to cast a great net so that people can understand that there's a place that they can come and feel safe to gather. I'm going to end with this. I have a student pastor friend that I've been in ministry with a really long time, and he has always closed his student services with "You matter." And I would love to leave that with you today. The Pioneer Assembly is a place to gather for those called to go. But no matter what your going looks like right now, you matter. You matter to God. You matter to the family of God. You matter to us. And most of all, just know that your presence here on earth is valuable. And until we are called home, until our journey is complete, know that we are called to pioneer. And so in that, I would love to encourage you to come to assemble with us and then get out in your world and go make much of Jesus. Welcome, friends, to the Pioneer Assembly. Well, friends, I hope you enjoyed this very first episode of the Pioneer Assembly. Be sure to follow us on Instagram. It's at Pioneer_Assembly. We'll have a website up soon. We've got some merch coming, but all that to say, we hope that you click to the next episode and jump into that first set of field notes. Know that you're prayed for, you matter, and we will see you soon back here at the Pioneer Assembly.